Alright, hello Guild Wars 2 gamers, Muckluck here, and we are back with another video related to trying out all of the Boon DPS in Guild Wars 2. To clarify, that is all of the DPS classes that provide either quickness or alacrity, one of the essential boons in endgame PvE. So that's fractals, strikes, raids. It also works in open world and world bosses and stuff, as long as you can dodge red circles, stuff like that. Now, as always, a small disclaimer at the beginning. If you are grouped with any of these people and they know what they're doing, they're fine, okay? They're fine. The differences between many of them are minuscule. It's just about how to play and what you might enjoy. I do not want to hear anybody like, oh, you didn't hear that Muckluck said that Catalyst is a dead class? Get out of our group, peasant. You know, honestly, I think it would be kind of funny if you talked like that, but don't be acting like that. All right, so first off, what we've got here is a list of all of the different elite specs that can provide quickness or alacrity. You'll notice that Druid is crossed out. Now, the reason for that, and I happen to be on my Druid right now, is Druid has the alacrity trait and it's in conflict with the damage trait. So a DPS elect Druid really doesn't work well. And on top of that, so it's like, okay, we've got a DPS loss to provide alacrity. Fine. The way they provide alacrity is healing in astral form. So while in astral form, you're largely doing near 0 damage to provide alac to your group. So you have to provide alac you have to provide alac while not doing damage, then do damage while not providing alac, and back and forth. It really is not feasible, so I just crossed that one out. All right, this column just says what each of them do. Chrono is the only one that is different from the others. It provides quickness or alacrity. There's just changing one trait changes how they provide it. So you could join a group and say, hey, I could be quick DPS or alac DPS or pure DPS. And the group tells you what they need, and you just change a trait. And quick and alac, I believe, have the exact same rotation, same playstyle. I believe the pure version of Chrono, or the pure DPS Chrono, which I have not played, has a slightly different rotation, but they're the only ones with that amount of flexibility. The next column that I've got here is other boons, question mark? Which of these supports are really good at other boons? I'd also like to pause for a second here and just talk about how this went for anyone who didn't watch the previous videos. I spent a play session, so like 2+ hours on each one of these classes. Some of these classes I've played for hundreds of hours. Others I've played for like 2, okay? So I'm not perfect, I will make mistakes, and I welcome you to correct me in a nice manner in the comment section down below. That is totally fine, all right? If you see something I got wrong, point it out. Otherwise, I'm sharing how it seemed to me after trying out each of these for a day. All right, so other boons. Herald. Herald, while you're providing your group with quickness, it can also be pumping out protection or fury or might or swiftness or regen, depending on how you use your facets. It is kind of a Swiss Army knife, and it can pump out a lot of other boons, including stability on demand, depending on how they set up what they're doing. Spectre. Spectre, while I was playing it, I was able to also give out Fury, Swiftness, Vigor, and 5+ might stacks to my group while I was giving them alacrity. Firebrand has a whole smorgasbord of boons on tap while it is doing its thing. Mirage gave simply Fury, 25 might, and the alacrity it's in charge of to its whole group, which is pretty cool. Tempest gave a very unique 25 might and protection to its whole group while it was playing. Scourge did some Fury, might, and prot. Harbinger did Fury, some might, and then had that unique ability where it gives its group every single boon in the game for like 6 seconds at the start of the fight and like every minute. So there's no real ramp up time for the group. It's a very unique power that only the Harbinger has, but if the group is starting on a fight, the Harbinger can throw that one cocktail that just gives you every buff in the game for the whole party, and then by the time that wears off, the other supports will have gotten their normal boons rolling. So the whole group does way more damage in the first 6 seconds of the fight, as long as there's a Harby there doing their job. Berserker just provided Fury to the whole group while it was doing its thing. Mechanist did, I'm looking at a cheat sheet over here, Fury and Might to the party. Scrapper did, if you're using Blast Gyro, you do a lot of Might stacks on the party if you're playing Scrapper. Catalyst, if you can play it, did Fury and Might to the party, and Chrono did like a mixture of things. The others were minuscule enough, or I forgot something, that I didn't write them down there. But these are ones, from what I felt had the most on tap to the least on tap, that provided more boons to the group. Next column. All right. Easy to learn, question mark. All right. Now, just because something's at the top doesn't mean it might not be tied with like the next 4, right? Okay. So Harbinger, very simple. You've got some abilities that do damage, and you kind of just hit them every time they light up. Like of course, with every class, there's going to be a mathematical rotation that if you hit this, then this, then this, it's the most damage. But if you just smash the keyboard with Harby, you're going to do pretty good. You're going to do pretty well. Also, the way they pulse out their boon is simply by being in Stinky mode. So as long as they just go into Stinky mode like half the time, their group's covered. They're happy. And then outside of that, you're just doing damage. Mechanist has many different ways of playing it. There is the sword pistol build, there's hammer build, there's rifle build. If you play rifle power mechanist, there's also Condi builds, which are much more challenging to learn, but also very effective. But if you play rifle mechanist, you can unga bunga, just smash the fist on the keyboard when things light up, and you can do it from like a really extreme range. And you'd be doing great. You know, easy 20 to 30k DPS while pumping out those boons. Very easy to learn. Herald, if you just like for example, I don't main Revenant. I copied a Herald guide, and I did what it said, and I just copied what, like, I didn't know why I was doing it, but I just did what it said, and I was able to keep those boons up, and I was able to do the damage that I was supposed to be doing. Now, when I tried to deviate from that, I suddenly had to, like, okay, I actually have to learn the class and the energy system now. But if you just want to, like, copy a build and go, Herald's not bad at all. Scourge is very simple in the way that if I told you, like, hit all 15 of these buttons every time they light up is a simple phrase. That's very simple instructions. It can hurt your wrist to execute it, you know, you might get carpal tunnel. Scourge, effectively, for those who don't know, they've got their 1 through 5, and above it, they have an F1 through F5 that's always available. And you're hitting a lot of those buttons often. So you're going ham on the left half of the keyboard while you're playing it. It's very simple, easy to learn, but there is a lot of buttons. Deadeye, oh man, dude, Deadeye, when I was playing it, the weapon rotation was basically when I had full initiative, hold down the 2 button until I don't. And then steal. Like hit F1, F3, was it F1, F3 or F1, F2? Basically, I would steal, and then I'd get another ability called like steal time, and then I would use that. But then hold down the 2 key. Super easy. Also, it's the only support DPS that when I tried it for 2 hours, I broke 30,000 damage per second while providing quickness 100% of the time. That was Deadeye. Untamed, we're starting to hit kind of the middle ground here. Some of the classes going down from here are ones that I did not feel were insanely difficult, but I didn't feel were insanely easy either. They were just kind of middle ground. You know, I had to put in a little bit of effort. It wasn't a cakewalk, but I wasn't like super challenged either. So Untamed, you know, I had to kind of learn the rhythm for like unleash self, ambush, weapon swap, ambush, unleash pet, do other things. Unleash self, ambush, weapon swap, ambush, unleash pet, do other things. And it was just like, there was like this set sequence I needed to do, freedom for a while to do whatever, set sequence again, and so on. And once I learned that, it was fine. Spectre, kind of a rotation. You're in normal form, you're in spooky form, you're in normal form, you're in spooky form, and go back and forth, back and forth. And it wasn't too bad. I found DPS Spectre much easier to learn. I was dreading this one because Heal Spectre was awful. It was absolutely awful. I don't recommend that to any of you. But DPS Alack Spectre was fine because you're not like stealthing your teammates constantly. You're not hitting the boss, hit a teammate, hit the boss, hit a teammate, hit the boss, hit a teammate. You're not doing that stuff. It's like all of the major cons with Heal Alack Spectre were not there for DPS Spectre. So it felt fine. I could just target the boss. So that was okay. Berserker, similar argument to Scourge. It's very easy for me to say, hit this one button 9,000 times per second. That's a very simple instruction that any of you can remember unless you play Norn. However, oh my god, after an hour of playing, you need a break. Welcome to Berserker. You're basically like, hit 1, hit F1, hit 2, hit F1, hit 3, hit F1, hit 4, hit F1, hit 5, hit F1, hit 2, hit F1. You're reloading! Hit 2, hit F1, hit 3, hit F1, hit 4, hit F1, hit F1, hit F1. That's Berserker. It's extremely simple. Your hand's gonna hurt. All right? Bladesworn. Basically all the APM that Berserker has, they stole it from Bladesworn, because Bladesworn is just like, it's one action per minute, you know? You just charge, wham, 100,000 damage. However, if you get interrupted, all that time is wasted. And that's when it hurts. If you get hit with a CC or you're interrupted in any way, then that charge up time had no payoff. You didn't provide the boons at the end, you didn't do the big damage at the end, but is it easy to learn? Yeah, it's pretty good. Renegade, very easy to learn the alacrity part of it. It's literally hit one button every 20 seconds. That's it. There's a single button that gives 20 seconds of alacrity with like a 20-second-ish cooldown, and you just hit it when it lights up. That's it. The DPS rotation of the standard Condi Alac Renegade, I found to be on the more challenging side of this spectrum, so I put it there in the middle, just a little bit past middle. Willbender, not too bad, but you're launching yourself all over the room like a pinball, and, you know, it can be quite disorienting, you know, being in the right place at the right time. Scrapper is not too bad, however, it is the only one relying on the combo system. In order to provide the boon that you are in charge of with Scrapper, you have to be doing combos. And if you are not doing combos, you are not providing the boon. So now it's nothing too complicated. It's like use a field, use a finisher, use a field, use a finisher. But I would say it requires a small amount more of knowledge of how game mechanics work in Guild Wars 2 than the other classes. No one else here has to think about combos unless they're, you know, just going above and beyond the basics. Tempest. It took a while for me to learn it, but once I did, I didn't have to really do anything else. Tempest kind of felt like no matter what is happening in the room, I'm hitting the same buttons. Now, it could have been I was playing it wrong, right? You know, muck dumb here. But it was basically fire, fire, water, earth, earth, water, fire, fire, water, earth, earth, water, fire, fire, water, earth, earth. I was doing like the waltz. It kind of felt like 1 2 3 3 2 1 1 2 3. I was doing a dance step, and I basically just tried to sit on top of my group and sit on top of the boss, and then just do that, and that's it. Tempest was the only one I got very bored on. Like, yeah, it has a lot of keys. You're not pressing many of them, and you're just like 1 2 3 3 2 1 1 2 3 3 2 1, and you're not really deviating from that with you know, some exceptions. With some exceptions. Chrono and Mirage, they have this whole like shatter minigame thing. I mentioned in the Chrono video that I felt like I was playing a mobile game in the bottom left corner of my screen the whole time I was playing it. So I was very little, now granted, if I had played Chrono more, I would have more practice, but I felt like I had very little time to look at what was happening in Guild Wars 2 because I was spending so much time playing a mobile game in the corner with the shatter thing. So Chrono was one that it maybe took me like 15 to 20 minutes in the testing room to kind of get it, and then I was able to do it fine. But, you know, compare that to, you know, Harbinger on the second attempt on the dummy. I had 100% boon up time. It was very different. Mirage is about the same as Chrono in that regard. You know, you need a target, you need to be pumping clones. Firebrand has a million different buttons that you have to be pressing, and like for a couple of them are mantras that like you activate the mantra and then you hit the mantra, and then 1 second you hit the mantra, 1 second you hit the mantra, and then it cools down for 20 seconds, then you hit the button and it recharges, and then 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. So it has many buttons you hit 4 times per 20 seconds. Like a bunch of those. So this one, there's a lot of buttons and the APM's high. It's the worst of both of those worlds. Catalyst, I couldn't even make it work. This thing, in 5 minutes, I was able to keep 100% quickness uptime and do 20,000 damage per second. As I played it more, I got even better. This thing, after 2.5 hours, I couldn't get a single test that I considered valid for group content. I couldn't. Like, on my best attempt, I got like 90% quickness uptime. And part of it is I'm new to kata. Part of it is kata's very complicated. And part of it, there's a lot of guides out there that all say different things. Some say use 2 spheres at a time. Some say use 3 spheres at a time. But I recommend this to no. You know what? Hold on a second. Let's move this down here. I recommend that to no one. All right. So, all right. DPS ranking. Now, for this one, I cheated a little bit because obviously I'm not the best at all these. I am a newcomer to all of these. I used the benchmarks on Snowcrows. So if a perfect player was playing all these DPS boon supports, it roughly looks something like this. Deadeye at the now some of these are like sometimes like all of these are like almost tied, you know, like this might do like 20 more damage than that one or something, like, but this is what the ranking looks like on Snowcrows currently. And although I didn't get the same numbers, I did have a very similar order. For example, I said that the only boon support where I broke 30,000 damage per second during my brief stint at playing it was Deadeye, and it's at the top of the ranking. Like, with the equal effort put into all of these, Deadeye pumped out the highest pure amount of damage. Many of them did about 20k. Deadeye did 30, did like 10k higher. You could argue that it has a little bit less utility than some of the other options, but it made up for it in, you know, big bonk. Speaking of utility, Herald, everybody's favorite right now. So Herald, they can often bring Chalice to put down the road, which gives everyone stability, which was one of the best stability applications in the game. If they're forced to, if you're on a fight where you need projectile block, they can bring the Centaur stance and make the big bubble, and they can keep the bubble out an extremely long period of time, and the bubble blocks projectiles for a very long time. And then also they've got, you know, all of these boons they're putting out, in addition to the quickness they're putting out. They are just, again, the Swiss Army knife metaphor. They have so much available to them. As long as they have a knowledge of the fight and they can swap a few things out before each encounter, they're so good to have like a nice one in your party. Firebrand. Whether you're a DPS Firebrand or a healing Firebrand, you've got access to the tomes. And the tomes are crazy strong because you've got an F1, an F2, and an F3 that are all additional weapons. So you have 5 weapons. A lot of skills there, including abilities to give your group stability, or condition cleanse, or resistance, or reflect projectiles. Those are all in the tomes. On top of that, the utility buttons that are down, your 7, 8, 9 skills. Firebrand and Chrono, in my opinion, have the best utility buttons in the game as far as group content. They have Stand Your Ground, which can give your whole group stability, and it stun breaks you. They have the Wall of Reflection. They have the bubble that pushes enemies out, and it tries to 7 times, so it does 700 to 1,000 CC. It's one of the biggest CCs in the game if the whole thing hits. They have a lot of nice utility. Chrono and Mirage, down there, once again in the 789 toolbox, they've got some really, really nice stuff. Tempest and Catalyst, simply because the elements, they have a massive number of skills, especially if they're also doing summoning conjured weapons and stuff like that. They have a lot of stuff to choose from. Scrapper has quite a bit of utility, even just baseline with things like Function Gyro to revive people. And then also if they decide to bring kits, that's even more. Spectre, the Wells offer quite a bit, and the Shadow Shroud offers a bit. Untamed is like 99% Unga Bunga, but it does have, if you're power Untamed, you have the freedom to bring Raid Res, which is, I talked about this in the Untamed video I put out a little while back. It is the ability to do a 10-man res, and they don't give up damage to bring that skill, which is nice. So you're just a DPS that provides quickness, but in your back pocket, you have such a powerful move ready to go. With a 2-minute cooldown, they could literally res 10 people if they're all in a pile, which can turn a raid wipe into a get back up, we're going to try this again, and we won't have to spend another 10 to 20 minutes here. So that's very powerful in my eyes. Boon Radius. Now, this one, I kind of did a cop-out on this one. Herald and Bladesworn both have 600 Boon Radius, with like every major boon that they do. So you could be almost anywhere in the fight and you're going to get hit by them. All of the others are kind of in the middle, with between 240 and 400 Boon Radius. And then we got Firebrand down here. Firebrand, some of their skills are applied in a cone. They're the only class that does that. And it is something that if you're going to play Firebrand, you have to get used to. Because otherwise, you will frequently have the boon up on yourself, but not your group. And you'll find out at the end that they never had quickness and you did the whole time. Because you weren't aiming at them. Like, you have to turn, like, if that tree is the group, you would have to, like, turn and aim at your group when firing those cone abilities. Otherwise, they will not get the boon. So that is a thing. So, for Boon Radius, that's what I put there. You know, these two really shine. This one really hurts until you figure out how to do it, and the others are all kind of middle ground. Thieves. These are all thieves. Thrives in downtime. Okay, so imagine you're fighting a boss, and he goes invulnerable and starts telling you his master plan, Mr. Bond. You know, and then there's a few seconds the boss is invulnerable, and you're waiting for him to become attackable again. Or he summons in an ad, and, you know, the Sabbatha summons in an ad, and she leaves the platform. You know, or something. Basically, there are a few moments that you cannot attack. Okay? Herald is unaffected. Pumps out those boons. Tempest can keep doing their 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2. They can keep doing that. Spectre, if they're in shadow mode, they can keep attacking nothing by holding down the 1 key. And every attack, whether it connects or not, is still giving their group alacrity. So they can keep those boons up often while they're waiting on the boss to be attackable again. They can also use their scepter to attack a teammate, stacking Rotwallow Venom on them, which makes their weapons poisoned. And then when the boss comes back and that teammate attacks, they'll do a whole bunch of dots. So, again, the Spectre can do a lot of preparation during that downtime to make use of it. Renegade is fine. Again, they just have to hit their, I believe it's F4 every 20 seconds, and that alacrity's covered. Firebrand, there's nothing really stopping them from using all their abilities while the boss can't be attacked. Same with the Mechanist. Although the Mechanist often uses the punching robot, which generates might stacks by punching. All the other boons that it provides are just like, be near me. And so your essential boons should be covered. Scrapper can still do boons, but the thing is, again, it uses combos. So if it does like a lightning field and then hammer leap finisher through the field, if it doesn't have a target, that leap finisher, it's just going to go flying off into the sunset. So it doesn't really want, it can, it doesn't really want to. And Untamed is kind of the same way because it can do ambushes without a target, but it may send itself flying. Scourge can spam barriers, which provides alacrity while there's downtime. That's fine. Harbinger can sit in stinky mode and pulse quickness, and that's fine. Bladesworn can Dragon Slash with no target, but it is very wasteful. They don't want to. Deadeye needs to be able to steal to provide their boon. Willbender needs to be able to hit things to provide their boon. We're getting down to I have to have something to wail on to provide the boon. All right, Berserker has to be able to Hulk Smash. Willbender needs to be able to hit. Chrono and Mirage need something to summon clones on and shatter. And Catalyst, I don't like you. I'm sorry. I couldn't get it to work. Oh my god. I couldn't get it to work. There's not a column on this sheet for, in my eyes, worst class I've ever played. But I'll tell you right now, okay? Worst feeling builds I've ever tried. All right? This is just bonus extra credit for you guys, okay? Top one, heal a Lack Spectre. Absolutely. Target a teammate, target the boss, make the teammate invisible, turn their attack off, target the boss, ambush the teammate, ooga booga booga, target the boss, target the teammate, you're invisible again, ha, target the boss. That felt trash, all right? Second place is Catalyst. Quick Catalyst, couldn't make it work after 2.5 hours. The entire system of, I have a class mechanic that summons a field, that I stand in the field, that it buffs me and encourages me to use my abilities in the class ability to buff my abilities, but if I do that, I won't have any abilities left to recharge the ability after the ability is over because the ability doesn't recharge while the ability is in effect. Like, it feels like it was designed by two people that didn't talk to one another. It has no cohesion. I don't like you, Catalyst. I don't like you. So that's down there. Uh, so I will say I don't know much about how it thrives in downtime because I couldn't even make it work in like proper time. So if there's a really good catalyst in the chat, he might be like, no, that should be up there. I don't know. I could not make it function. Let's see. APM, actions per minute. This is basically how fast is your wrist gonna hurt playing this class? Is your wrist gonna hurt? Berserker, number one in this category. You, again, I joked about it earlier, but this is actually pretty accurate. You hit 2, you hit F1, 3, F1, 4, F1, 5, F1, 2, F1, 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 3, F1, 4, F1. Like, your F1 is almost every other click. And you just smash, 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 smash. And you're hitting other buttons, too. And you're hitting your weapon skills, you're hitting your 6 through 0 occasionally, but you're hitting those. But your F1 is almost every other click. Extremely high APM. Every time you hit F1, it's a couple seconds of quickness for your group. Catalyst. Catalyst, I can say from trying it, it is extremely high APM as well. I was not able to succeed at it, but I know it's high APM. Firebrand, where the Renegade had one button that gives 20 seconds of alacrity, the Firebrand feels like it has 20 buttons that each give 1 second of quickness. So it's like I had this whole like button layout here, and the Firebrand's like, and that's kind of how it felt. It worked. It was functional, and it had lots of beautiful utility. Very high APM, lots of buttons to learn. All right? And as mentioned before, some of those buttons you're hitting 4 times each time they pop up to put them on cooldown again because they're mantras. Scourge is, you know, like you've got your 1 through 5 and your F1 through F5, and there's some nuances to when you use them, but largely you're using all of those. So the your left hand on the keyboard is going to be doing a lot. You're going to have a lot of button pressing over there. Chrono, the whole thing with the shatters is very high APM on DPS quick or DPS alac chrono. Scrapper, we're kind of getting to the middling ones. Scrapper isn't as bad, but it does have some APM, but I felt like everything after that was fine. Okay, so let's do gear. Okay, for gear, I actually have my other, this is the sheet I was scribbling on the whole time that I was doing this test. You could see this column right here. For many of the classes, you could just use Berserkers if you're power, or Viper if you are DPS. There was only a few that you use, like, for example, Renegade, I used Ritualist. Spectre, I had to use Ritualist. And Firebrand, you can choose. And then there was some that, like, Scourge was half and half. Tempest was half and half. Mechanist used a few pieces of Diviner, you know, stuff like that. So you can see here, and you can pause the video if you want to see this. These are the gears that were recommended as I tried these builds and what I used. And some people might care about that. Like if right now they're just a poor boy from a poor family, and they've only got the one set, and they're like, okay, what can I play with this set of gear? That's what those classes use. Okay, so melee builds and range builds. Now, I did my best in this. Here's the thing. There are many different ways to play some of these classes. Let's take Mechanist, for example. There's Sword Pistol, which is a melee build. There is Rifle, which is a ranged build, and there's Hammer, which is a melee build. All right, so because of that, Mechanist is in both columns. And this column's not a tier list, this is just a list, okay? Berserker, if your power, is largely melee. If you're Kandi, you can use the longbow, and you can be ranged for a long period of time, as far as I understand it. Bladesworn is full melee, Herald and Renegade are full melee. Renegade can use shortbow, but the other weapon's melee. Firebrand, to my knowledge, is melee. Willbender's absolutely melee. Untamed is absolutely melee. I tried it with a longbow, and I lost like 4k DPS. It was a huge drop-off. Deadeye, I learned it with staff, so that was melee. Scrapper, I learned it with hammer. Tempest and Catalyst need to sit on the target. Range builds, Spectre, if you're doing Kandi, Longbow, Berserker. Mechanist with rifle. And then all of these were full ranged. So that's my knowledge of those, of whether or not they're melee or ranged. There may be some builds that slip through the cracks, like maybe there's a Scepter Willbender or some heinous thing that I don't know about that would be ranged. And if so, that's completely fair. Just point it out in the comments. That's fine. Those are just the ones I know of. Okay. Can swap to full DPS easily. Chrono. By changing a trait, just one trait, not gear, not anything else, they can go from quickness chrono to alac chrono. There's another trait, the third and final trait in that same column, that is the DPS one. Now, my understanding is that actually changes the rotation, and I haven't learned the pure DPS rotation. I know the quick and alack one. But the point is that they use the same gear for all three of those. So if you join a group and they need you to be quick DPS, alack DPS, or pure DPS, if you know how to play those two builds, you can just swap the trait and use the exact same gear and go. And that's very powerful if you pug a lot. Berserker can and Bladesworn can both just change a trait or two and swap from the Boon version to the DPS version. Harbinger is the same. It can just change a trait, keep the same gear, and swap from the Boon version to the DPS version. Those are the ones I know of. If you know of any others, let us know. All right. Extremely rotational. Tempest, as I mentioned, it felt like it doesn't matter what's going on around me. That's not going to change what I'm doing. I'm doing fire, fire, overload, water, earth, earth, overload, water, fire, fire, overload, water, earth, earth, overload, water, fire, fire, overload, repeating. There's a few other buttons, but that's the gist of it, and you're really not deviating from that because that's what gives your group alacrity. And it takes a lot of time to do that. Like, it's, for the Renegade, hitting the alacrity button is a small, minuscule part of their rotation. For the Tempest, hitting the alacrity buttons is most of their rotation. So it's very rotational. Catalyst is very similar. Renegade, the alacrity part is extremely easy, but the damage rotation felt very rotational. Like, the Condi Alac Renegade was definitely on the more challenging side to play. And when I say that, I mean, like, kind of just past the halfway point. But it was because of that. And I really didn't feel like anything else went in this. Like, every build can have a DPS rotation, but this one felt like I was locked into it. All right. Stability, question mark. All right, can you get a boon providing DPS that gives your group stability on demand? Example, if you are running a heal alack Scourge in your party, fantastic support, doesn't have stability on demand. Do not talk to me about Trail of Anguish. I will kill you. It doesn't have good stability on demand. They would pair very well with a Quick Herald. Quick Herald can provide stability to its group on demand and covers for what the Scourge does not bring. Other ones that can do that, Chrono has Well of Precognition. I remembered the name that time. It can give like stability or an Aegis and stuff to its group if it needs it. Spectre has stability in the Shroud 5, but that's used in its rotation, kind of. But it also has a Well that brings stability, so they can bring that and have access to stability at any time. Tempest has a Shout for stability. Firebrand has lots of stability. This Firebrand should be higher up, but just know that it has lots of stability. Berserker can bring a banner that gives stability if it needs to. Mechanist has one button that does stability that they can hold. It's not great, but it is there. And Willbender could bring like Stand Your Ground. These are the ones that I knew of off the top of my head looking at all the classes that absolutely can bring stab to a group. Aegis, once again, Chrono has a Well for that. The two Guardians have tons of it. Berserker has a banner for it. I should probably, once again, let's just fix that right there. They should be above that. Scourge has Serpent Siphon, so they can give a stability, a Aegis when it's needed. Tempest and Kata have a Shout. Untamed it would be a DPS loss, but they could bring the White Tiger, Pet, or Stone Spirit, or both, to give access to Aegis to their group. They can do that. All right? And lastly, last column, my own personal enjoyment. What did I like? After trying all of these out, which ones did I love playing? These are almost tied. Untamed, I was able to do, I think it was 27k DPS, pretty respectable, and I provided quickness, and it didn't feel painful. It was the ambush system. It wasn't awful. Had a little bit of flexibility with like weapons and stuff. Like I could lose less than 1k DPS and swap to like maces, or use hammer, or use axes, or use sword axe, or dagger axe. I tried longbow too, but that was a significant loss in damage. But had a bit of flexibility, and you were able to bring a traded Spirit of Nature, which, as I mentioned earlier, was a 10-man res, which was very cool. I still felt like I had some control of the situation, It has a huge lifesteal every time it ambushes, so it has some self-sustain and stuff like that. The Scrapper has lots of self-sustain with the barrier that it generates on itself constantly, making it feel like an absolute cakewalk when you're going around an open world or even fighting Bone Skinner or something, because you're shielding yourself on a constant basis. You also have Function Gyro, which is a 1 to 3 man res. If it only reses one person, it's only a 20-second cooldown, and you can do it, like I said, every 20 seconds. So it has some control over whether or not the group is dying, and it does respectable damage and stuff like that at the same time. So I enjoyed that. Harbinger, it felt like the class was designed well when I played this. I was shocked by this, because the Harbinger, like, I recoil from the Harbinger from, like, a lore perspective. Like, a Necromancer does necromancy. A Harbinger drinks vodka and just fires a gun. That's just a Russian. I've said that numerous times. I married a Russian. I know a Russian when I see one. All right. I still don't think of this as a Necromancer, and I still think it's an affront that they got this, but it works very well together. Like, if you've only ever played Catalyst, try Harbinger, and you'll realize how bad you've really got it, okay? Like, the whole kit just works well together. It meshes quite well. The only thing on it that was kind of a con was the Blight mechanic. You lower your max health while you're playing it. And so I went from like 25k health down to like 15k health during a normal gameplay. So if I made a mistake, I pop like a balloon because I was always reducing my own max HP by like 10k. So that was a little spicy, but it was full ranged. It was easy to keep the boons up. It had the very rare power to immediately give your group every boon in the game the moment the fight started, so you had no ramp up time on your party, and that was quite cool. Alack Scourge plays pretty much identically to normal DPS Scourge, and Scourge is very strong. So it's like, even if you're just providing Alack or you're just doing damage, you're still throwing some barriers on your party. You're still giving your group some survivability while you're trying to kill the boss, and that's very powerful. Again, also it's full ranged, so a lot of advantages there. Deadeye. I don't main Thief. I'm not interested in maining Thief. But when I tried Deadeye, I was, within a half hour, able to pull over 30,000 damage per second and keep them essential boons up 100% of the time. The guide I got for that was well written, and it was a simple build, and I was able to pick up on it immediately. And it wasn't bad to play at all. So I enjoyed it, Whereas, some of these down here, it felt like pulling teeth. Mechanist, I mained Mechanist for like a year after EOD came out. I loved being the support that had a giant Gundam next to me. It was fun, and the DPS Mechanist is not too different from that. Now there's Condi Mech, which has like the weapons and flamethrower kit and bomb kit and grenade kit and mortar kit. So you've got 5 weapons, and it's a lot. I played Power, so it was a little bit simpler, and is pretty unga bunga at that point. If you're playing the Power version of it, it's pretty unga bunga because you don't have to juggle all those kits. Blade Sworn, we're starting to enter the stuff that I just was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't hate it. It's fine. Blade Sworn was fine. It wasn't difficult to play. It wasn't really rewarding to play. It wasn't insanely high APM. The biggest complaint is, like, anytime Whisper of Jormag would do his uppercut move, it would interrupt the big slash. So if I was like 3 or 4 seconds into it, then all that time was just wasted because it would get interrupted, and that sucked. Because again, for those who don't play Bladesworn, it's basically you do like no damage, no damage, no damage, no damage, 100,000 damage in a single slash. So if that big slash gets interrupted, it really sucks. Heralds was fine. It's no secret that I haven't really like loved the energy management system of the Revenants. The main thing with most Revenants is almost every Revenant build that you can find has you swapping legends on a cooldown. So if you need Chalice for stability for something, and you just swapped out of Chalice and it's time for stability, you can't. Because it's on cooldown. Or if you need the Centaur bubble, you can't, it's on cooldown. Like, I prefer a playstyle where those moves that I will need for niche situations are available for those situations. And Herald and Renegade constantly are locked out of half their moves because they're constantly legend swapping just all the time. That's a personal thing. I love having a good Herald in my party. They're very, very good teammates. I don't like playing it just because the energy system and the rotation of the class. Firebrand, again, love having it in the party. Mountain of utility. Tedious to play. Because again, it's like, you're hitting your 8 key 4 times every 20 seconds. You hit your 9 key 4 times every 20 seconds. You hit your 7 key a few times. You're doing your weapon skills. You're going in and out of your F1 and F2 and the F3 tomes. Maybe not all 3 of them, but a lot of them. So it's a lot of APM to get the same amount of quickness that Harbinger just farts. But it does have more utility if you can play it. But it's I would say it's very high APM, it's high skill cap, and it's extremely low hit points. So mistakes will make you pop. Willbender was fine. You get the zoomies, you zoom around the room, you do slashes, you do damage. It felt extremely punishing if I couldn't hit the target. So like if you're doing a raid boss or a strike and there's a moment where it goes invulnerable, your group will lose alacrity, almost certainly. You cannot like stack it up to like really high. You can't generate the alacrity while you don't have something to wail on. That felt bad. Spectre, probably tied with this middle section. It was fine. It was totally fine. Again, I hated heal-like Spectre, so I was surprised that I was okay with this one. But this one doesn't suffer from the same things that heal-like Spectre had to do, such as the ambushes on friendlies, rapid target swapping between the boss and a friendly, and making your teammates go invisible and turning their attacks off. The DPS Spectre didn't have to do that. Tempest. Tempest, although it has a lot of buttons, once you learn them, you're doing the same thing the whole time. Fire, fire, water, earth, earth, water, fire, fire. You're doing that the whole time. I got bored. In this entire column, the only class that I just flat out got bored was Tempest. I was surprised. Because it's just like fire, fire. Waiting on the overload. Alright, water, earth, earth. I could literally take my hands off the keyboard for seconds at a time during this rotation. Like, you were just watching your character spin. It was kind of like fishing. It was, I was logged into the game, but I wasn't actually playing the game because I was just staring at something. And so I got bored on Tempest, but it's effective, it's viable, it did the job quite well. It had those niche things where it gives its whole group protection and 25 might. That was awesome. But yeah, just it wasn't for me. Chrono. I was surprised how much I disliked this one because I loved Heal Chrono. I loved it. And because of that, I was looking forward to this one. And part of it is this doesn't use concentration gear, whereas the Heal Chrono did. So this, the alacrity applications or quickness applications are half the duration, which means you got to get way sweatier than Heal Chrono did to keep the boons up. And it was challenging. I had to like try the rotation out while I was reading guides and chat was giving me advice with Chrono for, I don't know, it might have been 20 or 30 minutes in the test room before I got a single successful run where I kept the boon up. Now once I got it, and I was able to then go do strikes and raids with it and stuff like that. However, is the whole shatter system I found to be extremely tedious. Is like I use a move and make a clone, and then I wait for the clone to turn into, I use a ability, make a phantom, then the phantom does an attack, wait for it to turn into a clone, then I get 3 clones, and then I use those to do a shatter, and then I use a weapon skill to make a phantom, and then use the phantom to make a clone, use the clone to do a shatter, and on and on and on and on and on, and it was just, I've said it before, it felt like I was playing a mobile game down in the bottom left corner, and I wasn't watching the Guild Wars 2 in the middle of the screen. It would get better if I played it more, but I have no inclination to do that. But again, I loved Heal Chrono, so I was kind of surprised at how I felt about this one. Mirage. In the test room, Mirage was easier to learn than Chrono, and it was very, very easy to get up to 20k DPS and keep that boon up 100% of the time. When I tried it in a real environment, I was like, oh god, this is why no one plays this. Because anytime like the boss went invulnerable or we killed a target and swapped to the next target, I had to start over with clones. And the way it works for Mirage, for those who don't know, is you generate clone 1, clone 2, clone 3, you got the clones, then you start ambushing, then those ambushes have an animation, then your group starts getting alacrity. So there's like a few seconds of wind-up time on every new target before you start putting Alacrity out. So it wasn't that Mirage was bad. It was that everything else that provides Alacrity felt better. So Mirage is like, no one plays really Alac Mirage anymore in like PvE, and now I know why. It's not that it's a dead class. It works. It's functional. It's easier to learn than Chrono is, and it has the ambush system. Oh, and the Mirage Cloak. Mirage Cloak, you have to make sure you learn that too, because your dodge roll no longer rolls you. It dodges, but it doesn't move you. And so sometimes you might try to dodge out of a red, and you just go invulnerable for a second, and then you die because you're still in the red. So there is a learning curve to that too. But yeah, it's Mirage is not dead class. It's just that everything else does it better, so people don't play it much anymore. That's how it felt to me. Berserker. You ever go to do something you really don't want to do and you're watching the clock the whole time? Maybe you're in class at like a college, some required class you don't want to take. Maybe you're exercising, you hate exercise. Maybe you're doing yard work and you hate yard work. You're just checking the time constantly, wondering if you're almost done. I did that with Berserker. And I have never done that with a class in this game before. I kept checking the clock to see if I'd put in enough time. And I've never done that with any other class in this game. But I kept just like, have I done enough of it? Yeah, my God, it's still got another hour. Like, I kept doing that the whole time. It was like, I could do one thing, and it was some damage and quickness, and that's it. If you needed me to do anything else, that's a dang shame. And sometimes I kind of had like a bonding moment with my DPS. Sometimes I was like, all right, quickness is falling off. I need to stand in this fire and hit this guy with an F1 again to keep quickness on my group, or they're going to lose it. And I would like make a judgment call that it was better for me to stand in a red circle sometimes because it's what I had to do to keep quickness on the party. And I was told the healers, I was like, look, I'm sorry. I'm doing this with full knowledge of what I'm doing because I normally play healer, but I feel like I have to do this. So it was just like super high APM. You know, my hand hurt after 2 hours of playing this thing. And I was doing less quickness uptime than a Harby. And I had to get closer and stand in fire to do it. And I could do nothing else. I brought nothing else to the table. I didn't bring any other utility, any other crazy powers, anything like that. And I absolutely rank that as the second or third like worst feeling to play build I've ever played in the game. And if that one's the third place one, the second place worst build I've ever played in the game is Catalyst. Catalyst was the only one that I could never even make work in the testing room, so I never left the testing room with it. I spent 2.5 hours in the testing room, and I tried the hammer build for a time. I tried the Snow Crows build for a time. I tried the Gilgen build for a time. I tried, I think it was Dagger Warhorn for a time. The best I got was like 19k DPS with like 90% boon uptime on quickness. But that was way worse than 5 minutes on almost any other class. That was like really bad. So yeah, like again, this one is not dead class. It just feels like everything else does what it does better. These two to me are now in my top 3 worst feeling classes I ever played, right behind Heal-Alac Spectre. These were absolutely brutal. And that's the last column. That's the last column. Yeah, personal enjoyment. I'm probably, after doing this test, going to spend more time playing DPS Untamed than I did in the past. And I really enjoyed Scrapper as well, Harbinger and Scourge. Harbinger, really powerful at what it did. Very cool, felt good to play. I didn't like reducing my max health by 10,000. That was scary. I did not like the Blight just destroying my own max health. So I will say I probably enjoy, like, this flowed really well. Like, ironically better than the guy with the ability called Flow. This flowed better. Scourge, extremely high APM, but I liked doing shades and stuff, helping my team with barriers while I was doing damage to the boss. Like, yeah, like if I had the option to, why not have a group full of just DPS Scourges and then just ignore the mechanics because we have so much barrier, you know? Why not? Like, it was so good. But yeah, that is all my thoughts after trying every DPS boon support in Guild Wars 2 for PvE. Whew. All right, and yeah, with that, if you've got any questions, problems, thoughts, concerns, or corrections, I welcome them. Please, please remember, this is not a guide. This was my experience. This is just cataloging my journey of trying every single one of these for a day. And then that's how it felt to me as a newcomer to a lot of these. Yeah, there's going to be people in the comment section, oh, you didn't do that right. Like, oh, you played the wrong build of this. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Many of these classes, like if you ask the Tempest community, like, hey, what build? I want to play Tempest. What build is Tempest? It's going to start the new Civil War movie, right? Because they cannot agree on it. So I did the best I could. Firebrands, you guys are the same, so don't get uppity with me, okay? You guys wear a cape while you play. All right, so yeah, that's it. Correct me in the comment section down below, and I will fight you there.